Hey, let's talk about games. Hello my friends, welcome back. Hydra here with an updated video on making builds within Inquisitor Martyr. That's right, builds do exist in a form within this game, even though weapon skills aren't necessarily customizable with the classes of the Assassin and the Crusader. We're going to divide this video into two. We're going to talk about the early game phase where you're not entirely sure what weapon you want to go for. So if we bring up the skill system over here in the top, what I'd suggest we do when you're in this phase of early game exploration, undecided on weapon, I'll ask you first the question, have you decided if you would rather be ranged or rather be melee? Or do you want to keep it flexible? Because this response really dictates where we can put some early points. So for example, if you want to be ranged, the range combat tree is probably the safest to go for. Not every point here will be well invested, but most of them will apply equally to any ranged weapon. Those being the extra range damage points as well as the critical hit. Obviously the ones like 5% more damage to slowed, shocked, stunned or frozen enemies are nice, however they're not going to apply to every ranged weapon and it might be something you want to hold off on until later in the game when you want to go for a more specialised build. Now, the reason we invest all of our points into one build in particular at a time during the beginning is when we want to reset, we only need one reset consumable in order to then spend all of these points elsewhere into a build of our choosing. So for the first 20 levels of the game, I would really recommend you put them into one tree which will apply equally to all of your weapons. That way you can try lots of different weapons, explore the game and explore what it has to offer. If you are undecided between ranged and melee, I would suggest going for something like critical if you want to be going for a damage orientated build, or perhaps even if you want to be more tanky going for defense or hit points. Both of these are obviously equally useful in terms of staying alive. One could even argue that the 150 hit point bonus from the hit point tree is probably better than 1.5% damage you're going to be picking up from any other tree, so very, very powerful. You can also keep an eye open for the suppression tree, which basically applies to you if your suppression is high. Very, very useful. Now, let's say we've moved on from this phase in the game where we've got no preference towards weapon and now we've got a favourite weapon. Now, of course, what we'll do over here is we'll bring up the character sheet again and we'll have a look at our perks. The reason being is once you've chosen a weapon, and I'm presuming at this point you understand what the weapon does, if you're unsure what a weapon does, always just hover over each individual ability, and if you can't remember them, bring up MS Notepad and just write down critical strike, single target. Make sure to note that it's heat damage too. Laser's not particularly relevant, it's just a subcategory, but it's all heat damage. Rapid fire spread, single, aimed critical, single target, dot. You can use all of this information quote unquote soon. Now we go back to the character tree. Now we've got a weapon that we understand and that we know what it does. So now we can look for a bunch of perks which will complement this. Now for this character in particular, I've chosen one where the aimed ability, which is the number 1 ability, is going to have its cooldown instantly reset when it gets a kill with that ability. So therefore I've chosen some other perks which will basically help that ability do lots more damage. So as a result, this character is going to be a quote-unquote sniper orientated character. Obviously using a lasgun, bit weird, but I don't have a sniper rifle to hand. So again, just make sure you know all of these off by heart now, because this is going to be incredibly useful when spending the skill points. So first we've chosen a weapon. Then we've basically chosen our sub-playstyle category using the perks, and now we're going to complement this quote-unquote build with spending skill points. So for this build in particular, aimed is going to be very, very useful. Obviously having even more points invested would probably be quite nice. This is going to apply to that one ability which is going to have its cooldown reset every single time I get a kill with it, so we obviously want it to do as much damage as we can get it to do, so we've got all of these extra points invested to do so. Critical hit obviously applies to any range damage, and the range damage tree as well, going to be very, very useful. Now the gun itself does actually apply a show's slow, shock, stun or freeze, which is via the enchant on it as well. So when you get towards the late game too, you also need to keep in mind the enchants that are possible on a weapon, because these may completely change how you build a weapon. For example, if this one didn't have these this particular enchant, if we go back to the skill tree here, then within the range tree 5, 10, 15, 20% damage would be lost and unavailable to us, unless of course one of our allies applied the slow, shock, stun or freeze. But you get what I'm saying. Make sure you understand what the weapon does, because that really dictates where you should be spending the points. So that's pretty much how I would be customizing your playstyle or builds within the game. I would always look at your weapon first, orientate your perks around that weapon, and then reset that skill tree. Hopefully you've invested all of your points into 1 or 2 to make it nice and easy to reset and dish them out and spread them out as you wish, and then try and find yourself a build that's going to be optimizing basically the weapon. We could obviously go for heat damage, and there are lots of routes for this. Let's not pretend that there isn't a little bit of choice. We could have heat damage points invested because it's a laser weapon. Seems to be a little bit of a graphical anomaly here that we have points invested into a tree I've not unlocked. I know why that is. It's because the character was quote unquote created for me. There are different options. We could also go for single target. Remember, some of those abilities did do single target damage. Now this is up to you. Now obviously I will be doing build guides further down the line specific to end game builds to give you guys some examples, but this is just really a little bit of information to get you started so you guys know how to start creating your own builds within Martyr and customize your gameplay. Hopefully for those of you that don't have the game as well, it gives you a little bit of an idea as to what is available within this game. Just keep in mind that the Psychic doesn't have these fixed abilities per weapon. He does have 1 or 2 abilities for this equipped in-hand weapon, but the remaining slots, of which there can be up to 5, will be freely available psychic abilities, which can be chosen via a little book down here in the station. Obviously I don't have access to it as I'm a Death Cult assassin, but this is where you'd be interchanging your psychic skills once you've gained the appropriate rank. Guys, I hope you find this useful just to get you started. There will be lots more specific build guides coming soon as per weapon and as per playstyle. Keep your eyes peeled, feel free to hit the like button down below and feel free to subscribe. Thanks again guys, you look after yourselves, take care.